fans, welcome back to Mind for Combat. Now, before I get into the fight breakdown for this video, which is my favourite part of every video, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported my channel, and I want to request anyone who's on my channel for the first ever time, please support me to grow my platform as big as possible by hitting the subscribe button below and liking the video. Also, recently, I've had contact with another MMA channel who, like myself, is at the beginning of their journey and is trying to grow. So I'm going to put the link down to MMA Newsroom down in the description below. Please check out some of the content, and if you like what they're doing, subscribe them and support them grow as well. So the link will be down in the description below. Anyways, that's the awkward part. That's what I'm terrible at. Now let me do what I'm good at. That's the fight breakdown. So for this video, I'm going to be breaking down the fight between Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum. It's a huge fight and it's for the UFC middleweight title, and that's going to be happening in Australia. Now, this is a fight that is very, very interesting to me, and it's interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Both of these guys could legitimately have been fighting for the welterweight championship. Robert Whittaker didn't have so much success at welterweight. He said he had difficult weight cuts, but what Tyron Woodley's come out and say is both of these guys are just welterweights that don't know how to cut weight. Now, I don't tend to disagree with that statement. I think they're both small at middleweight, but I like them at middleweight. I don't like weight cutting, and this is a very, very, very fun fight. Now, before I go into the technical breakdown of the fight, let's do what I always do, and let's go through the figures and the stats, okay? So, firstly, these are both two very young and hungry middleweights. They're both in the prime of their careers. They're both in their athletic primes. Robert Whittaker, he's a very young man. He's a world champion with 2 defenses, but he's only 28 years old. Kelvin Gastelum himself is a very young man. He's fought some of the best fighters in the world, but he's only 27 years old. That's perfect. They're both in their physical peaks, they're both in their primes, they're both very young, and they're both meeting just now. So it's a good time for the fight. Their records. So Robert Whittaker has a record of 20 wins and 4 losses. He rides I believe, a 9-fight win streak into the fight. Opposite Kelvin Gastelum, who has a record of 15 wins and 3 losses. Now, UFC tends to say he's got 16 wins and 3 losses, but I think they count one fight from the Ultimate Fighter. His record is 15 and 3 officially, and he's won back-to-back fights. I think, so in terms of, there isn't a massive difference in fight between them, but I think the difference here is in championship chops, and I think that's something that I'll go into a bit more in a bit more detail. Let's look at the sizing. Robert Whittaker stands at 6 foot tall, and Kelvin Gastelum stands at 5'9". So that makes Kelvin Gastelum 3 inches shorter than Robert Whittaker, which should play out in this fight because I think largely this fight will play out on the feet, and if Robert Whittaker is able to use that size difference, I think it will benefit him, and that size difference translates over into the reach as well, because Robert Whittaker has a 73.5 inch reach, and I think Kelvin Gastelum has a 71 or 71.5 inch reach. It's either there or thereabouts. So he's got a couple of inches on him in height, and he's got a couple of inches on him in reach. I wish that we could calculate leg reach, because I think with Robert Whittaker's kicks, that's going to be very key. He's got a couple of key head kick KO wins over Derek Brunson and Jacare, so I think his kicks are going to come into play here. I wish I could have given you that stat, but I don't have it at hand. So I think that's an interesting stat to remember there. Okay, now some of the key wins. Let's look at Robert Whittaker first, because he has got an extensive resume here. So he's got 2 wins over Yoel Romero. 1 win over Yoel Romero is incredible. He's got 2 wins. Now, the second fight was very close and controversial, and I personally had it towards Yoel Romero, but it was a close enough fight that I wasn't upset that Whittaker got the decision. 2 wins over Yoel is incredible. He's also knocked out Jacare Souza, which is a big, big feather in his cap. He's knocked out Derek Brunson. That's another big feather in his cap, especially when he beat Derek Brunson. They were both in a 5-fight win streak. That's when Derek Brunson was at the peak of his momentum, and that's when they collided. So that was a good win. He's also gotten wins over the likes of like Uriah Hall and I believe Brad Tavares as well. So he's gotten some good wins. Now you got Kelvin Gastelum on the other side. He's coming off back-to-back wins over. He's knocked out Michael Bisping after Michael Bisping lost to George St. Pierre. So obviously Michael Bisping weren't 100% himself there, but he's still got a nice, clean first-round KO win over Michael Bisping. That's a big deal for me. He's just beaten Jacare Souza as well. As a middleweight, he's 4-1 since his return to middleweight anyway, and actually he should be 5-1. He had a win over Vitor Belfort as well, which got overturned into a no contest. His only loss is to Chris Weidman, and I think that had a lot to do with Chris Weidman's size. So there's that. Let's look at some of the X factors, some of the issues in this fight before we go into the X factors. Actually, I feel like some of the issues on Robert Whittaker's end is, firstly, he's been kind of inactive. He only fought once in 2018. That was a tough fight with Yoel Romero, and so I wonder if that's going to play out in this fight. And he's had wars with Yoel Romero. So prior to fighting Yoel Romero last in I believe it was September, he hadn't fought since he fought Yoel Romero the year before that in July, I think it was. So you know, he's had I might be off a month or so with the dates there, but he hasn't been very active. So I think that's going to be an issue here. He's also taken some big shots in the last Yoel fight. He took big shots in the Yoel fight before that. So that chin bears consideration. You got to think about what impact that's had on him, if any. With Kelvin Gastelum, you got when it comes to his issues, you got to think about his size. He isn't a very big middleweight. Actually, I think if he could get his diet in order, he'll be a good welterweight in terms of sizing. So I think that's going to be something to consider. Now, the X factor here for Robert Whittaker is clearly going to be his championship credential. He's had 3 world title fights now. He's had multiple main events, twice in there with Yoel. He's been through the wars. He's developed that grown man fighter mentality where he can get smashed up but still survive to see the end of the fight. And for Kelvin Gastelum, I think it's going to be his X factor is going to be his speed. He has got lightning fast hands at this weight class. I think he moves well with his feet, and I like Kelvin Gastelum's movement. Let's go into the fight. How do I see it playing out? Firstly, I think one of the things that we got to remember here is, though Kelvin Gastelum doesn't have Yoel Romero level of wrestling, he does have good wrestling. So I think he's going to be the person of the two that's going to be able to mix it up better in the fight. Robert Whittaker has great wrestling and he was able to defend Yoel, but what Yoel doesn't have that Kelvin Gastelum does have is lightning fast, swift hands. Now, Yoel's got good stand-up, and I appreciate Yoel's stand-up. Fundamentally, he's sound. But when it comes to Kelvin Gastelum's boxing is incredibly slick. His hands are fast, much faster than Yoel's. He's also 27 years old. Yoel was 41. And whilst he's a genetic freak, he is still 41. So with Kelvin Gastelum, I think he's going to have a nice hand speed advantage over Robert Whittaker. So when the fight starts, I think we're going to be seeing it start off very tentatively. I think Robert Whittaker's going to stay calm, stay poised. He's going to try to fall back, and I think he'll almost let Kelvin Gastelum lead. I think what we're going to see is Robert Whittaker commit more to his kicks in this fight than he has previously, because I feel like he'll be more confident or comfortable to do that, where I feel like the fight's going to play out with the feet a lot more. I think as the fight goes on, what we're going to be seeing is Robert Whittaker trying to stay on the outside and keep some distance between the both, use his kicks, and he's got sound boxing as well. But I feel like Kelvin Gastelum's going to be able to close the distance and connect. Yoel was able to connect, and I feel like Kelvin Gastelum's going to be able to connect. I feel like Kelvin Gastelum's going to find that chin, and when he does, he's going to make it count. He hits hard. He's also not a fighter that's known to gas out like Yoel is. Kelvin Gastelum's a fighter that will hold on to his conditioning. He's going to have great conditioning throughout. So I think what we're going to be seeing here in the fight as it plays out, we're going to see Kelvin Gastelum come in. He's going to have a speed advantage, and I think he's going to have a boxing advantage. And whilst Robert Whittaker's going to have great kicks and he'll be able to keep it standing if Kelvin Gastelum does initiate the takedown, I think Kelvin Gastelum's wrestling chops mean that he'll be able to mix it up and keep Robert Whittaker thinking. Whilst I respect Robert Whittaker a great deal and I wouldn't mind being wrong in this prediction, I like them both. I think what we're going to be seeing is Kelvin Gastelum outbox him. He's going to connect, and I think later on in the fight we're going to get a Kelvin Gastelum stoppage. I think so. My official prediction is, whilst it's going to be a competitive fight, particularly early, we're going to be seeing Kelvin Gastelum getting the 1-2s, jab in, out. He's going to be moving. He's going to be cutting the distance. He's going to be, when it gets too close, I think he's going to go for the wrestling exchanges. And I think in these exchanges, Kelvin Gastelum's going to land some shots. He's going to make them count. And when Robert Whittaker's in trouble, I think he's going to get the finish later in the fight. Now, I don't tend to pick stoppages in my predictions normally. I normally tend to give a prediction on who I think will win. But this time, I'm going to give a prediction that Kelvin Gastelum gets a stoppage as the fight goes on. So fight fans, let me know what you think. Comment below, let me know who you think is going to win this fight. Let me know if you think I'm completely off the mark here and that if Robert Whittaker is going to completely dominate the fight, because I've seen a lot of guys that are thinking that. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys. Mindful Combat.